What is up, fam? Thank you so much for joining us today for So Real Sports Talk TV. I am your host, So Real Sunil, and we have a very, very special show today. We have former Jets. He's even repping it on the hat. NFL scout, currently writer for Sports Illustrated for the Jets, and I believe the Lions as well, right, Daniel?
Correct. Yes.
All right, perfect. Daniel Kelly, author of the book Whatever It Takes. Daniel, thank you so much for taking the time tonight to join us on the show. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing well, Sunil. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. And we were talking, off camera. You were somebody that I've actually read about in some articles before, just because of your story of how you got to be an NFL scout for the Jets. And it was amazing when we linked up on Twitter. I was talking to somebody, I didn't even know it was you, even though, you were somebody that I wanted to interview. So I'm really glad we made this happen.
Me too.
Yeah. So Daniel, first, I just kind of wanted to, for people that don't know your story, obviously you were an NFL fan, and just your persistence kind of made you get into the scouting game. So I know you've written a whole book about it. There's multiple interviews about it that people could read up. But if you could just give us kind of like a brief breakdown of how you became a scout and just, that whatever it takes kind of mentality that you've coined, and how it helped you reach your dreams.
Absolutely. It was an incredible journey, Sunil, to say the least. Growing up in Minnesota as a huge fan of the Washington Redskins. I had this tremendous passion for the game, and it kind of worked itself, into me wanting to play, but I never quite got big enough to be a linebacker at Penn State like I wanted to be. So
just a little too small, right?
Just a little too small. Absolutely. I ate all the weight gainer 2200 I could at GNC at the nutrition store, and made large pizza to get my hands on, but I never got big enough to play linebacker. So my parents eventually let me give it a try in high school to play football. And I was so bad at playing that I was the only kid on my team not to have enough playing time to earn a leather jacket.
Wow.
So I want everybody, our listeners, to grab a hold of this, because, I'm not one of these guys that came up with the last name Lombardi or something. That's not my story. I didn't get the leather jacket, but, I dabbled a little bit in coaching, Sunil, and into our listeners. I went ahead and actually invented a play that I sent to Joe Gibbs, the head coach of the Redskins at the time. And he actually used my play that worked for a touchdown in a preseason game against the Atlanta Falcons when I was 17 in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And he actually wrote a response that's in my book, Whatever It Takes. So I do have proof that he used the play. And so I dabbled a little bit in coaching, but really my life changed that year on my 17th birthday when my parents gave me a book, Secrets of NFL Scout, by Tony Brisano, somebody you guys are all near and dear to your hearts, the old scouting director of the 49ers who worked with Bill Walsh, of course, all those years, and was the guy that convinced Bill Walsh to draft some guy named Joe Montana instead of Steve Dills, is who Bill Walsh wanted, as Brisano tells the story in his book.
Wow.
And so, I got this book and I grabbed a hold of it, and I was like, this is what I want to be. This is what I want to be, an NFL scout. And so I read the book backwards and forwards and, see if there's any subliminal messages in it. And then I started recording every game I could off the television, college football games, started writing scouting reports. And Mr. Rosano did such a great job of showing like how to write a report and what a scouting report looks like. He put actual examples of scouting reports in his book. So I was able to draw from that. And because there was nothing back then, Sunil, as far as scouting, there was nothing back then. There was like this little yellow book I used to save up my allowance for, called Jerry Jones Drugstore List, not the Cowboys owner, but another Jerry Jones. And it was like a one-liner on each guy. And that was that was it for the draft. And
so was this before like Mel Kiper Jr. was coming out with his books and stuff like that?
No, he was out there. But my parents wouldn't allow me to have cable TV or ESPN. Gotcha. So I had to go the route and get a little book.
Okay.
And so, but I put these reports together, and I typed up my first, it was like a 70-page draft report back in 1992. And I remember having Desmond Howard with, the Heisman pose, on the front cover. And I sent it out to Charlie Casserly, who was the general manager of the Redskins at the time, basically asking him for an internship. And he wrote back and said, "Hey, you're still too young. Check back after your first year of college." Well, I was so into scouting and into football that my grade slipped. My dad gave me kind of the ultimatum, like, "Hey, it's either the military or college. What do you want to do with your life?" type of speech. Mm-hmm. And so I went into college for a year, kind of got into the social scene, dropped out, ended up at Allstate Insurance, 21 years old. Not the place you would think an NFL dream would start to come true, but it was for me because I was telemarketing for insurance leads, and KFAN radio came on, the sports radio station up in Minnesota, and they said, "Hey, the first 32 callers call in now. You'll be on there representing an NFL team on the air." So I had 9 open phone lines, so I started dialing like a maniac, and they say, "Hey, congratulations! This is 1995. You're the second caller. You're going to represent the Jacksonville Jaguars, the expansion team. Bring a friend out to Winter Park with the Vikings headquarters, and you're going to, be on the air, and it'll be great. We'll provide lunch and all this." So I grabbed all my old scouting reports, took my best friend at the time. We went out to the Vikings headquarters, and I was scared to death of public speaking at the time. And the big microphone, like the one sitting in front of me now, they said, like the commissioner does, with the second pick in the 1995 draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select, and I leaned into the mic and I said, "Tony Boselli, offensive tackle, USC," right? And out of the corner of my eye, there was Tony Dungy. And this before, Tony, became the Tony Dungy everybody knows. He was the defense coordinator of the Vikings at the time under Denny Green. And so I, raced up to him and showed him all my reports. And he was like, "Hey, this stuff is great. How do you feel about coming to my office next week? We can sit down." And like, "I'll be there." So it was awesome. He pulled all his old scouting reports out from Blesto. He compared them to my scouting reports. He said, "This stuff is pretty much right on target." He said, "How, it just turned into be like a 6-month unpaid internship with Coach Dungy." He left for Tampa. I went back to the real world, selling Kirby vacuum cleaners again. I want everyone to get a hold of this because my last name begins not Lombardi, right? I went door to door selling vacuum cleaners, just selling cookbooks, went through a real rough time. Went through a big breakup at the time, and I was kind of like at a loss, and I found myself at 24 working at Bank of America Mortgage as a loan officer, and I'm like, what am I doing here? My dream is to be an NFL scout. It's better to go for it and try and not get it than to wonder always what if. So I got a little satellite dish, started recording all the games again. And actually it turned into be a 350-page self-published draft guide that you alluded to, Sunil, that I sent out 3 copies to every team in the NFL, one to every general manager, head coach, and director of player personnel, and packed it all up along with next month's rent payment. So it was kind of like wave the punter off the field. I mean, I put every dime I had into this project with no guarantees, and sent them off. And that's when the call came from the Jets.
Wow. That's amazing. And then, the rest is history. So how long were you an actual scout for the Jets?
4 years.
4 years. Okay. Beautiful. And so this is kind of what I wanted to learn. So I love that, you have the insider experience. Obviously that story is amazing, not only for people that are looking to get into the NFL, but just the type of passion and work ethic it takes to reach any kind of dream, especially, something as coveted as an NFL job. But right now is the time of year where I think scouting is the most under scrutiny because the draft is about to happen in a few weeks. Obviously, free agency is picking up and stuff like that. So can you give us a little bit of insight, Daniel, in what the process is? What is life like for a scout during this time when the combine just happened and up until actually picking a player? What is the team doing? What is individual scouts doing? And how does that actual draft board come into play during, that draft day?
Absolutely. Now, I was in pro scouting. Okay, so there's the pro side and college side. So what I did is I assisted more in the college side in the preparations. So, whatever they needed, I went to 4 straight combines in Indianapolis. And, it's a real interesting process of really information gathering. It's something where, the college scouts are busy putting everything together. They're having a lot of draft meetings in the building. And then I went, to Indianapolis with all the college scouts and everything, and then helped, track down the players for interviews and also to make sure that they got to their room okay, and make sure they get, cross over to the medical center for their testing and everything. And so I was just kind of like assisting in that process from the pro scouting, because the season never ends in scouting. Right. The season never ends in football in general. I mean, everybody, it's not just the NFL network, it's everything. It's year round, and so inside the building, the college scouts are meeting, putting together their board. Our building was a little bit different than some buildings from what I've been told, because in our building, we had one voice, and that was Bill Parcells, and rightfully so. And so, the scouts would turn in all their information, and it was just it was a process that came together on draft day that was surreal, to be honest with you. It was just something that was incredible to be a part of, because as a young guy, I had a chance to kind of stand in the doorway, right, because all the seats were taken. The back table was reserved for Bill Parcells, Bill Belichick, Dick Haley, the architect of the 1970s Steelers dynasty, and also Mike Tannenbaum was there at the time. And the four of them were fielding phone calls. The room was, you could hear a pin drop in the room, and all the scouts were busy putting together the information, everything. And, just like we see on TV, Chris Berman comes on, and the whole scene, and, the TV is going, and, it was just real tense. And I stood there, and because I had told my best friend, I said, I'm going to be in an NFL war room next year when I wrote my draft book, with no guarantees. And here, a year later, flash forward, there I am.
Wow.
And so I'm standing there in the doorway of the Jets war room, right? Which is a dream come true.
Right.
And, the draft is starting. And just like we see it on TV, the commissioner comes up and says, the New York Jets are now on the clock. And the whole room just goes silent, right? And, the phone rings periodically. Mike Tannenbaum's busy, banging on the calculator, seeing like if a trade gives thumbs up or thumbs down, if the trade makes sense or not. And all of a sudden, Bill Parcells gets up and just walks out of the room. And, Chris Berman's like, well, the pick's coming up. Let's see what they're going to do. And nobody knows where.
Really? So you guys in the room don't know. Only Parcells knows at this point.
Right. Only he knew at that point. And so he, he would, come back in the other room. And so that's the way kind of the draft, worked. As he made that final decision, and they sent him the card, and that was it. And so it was just a real intense process. And also, as the draft progressed, I got more involved, with helping out and also producing the cards. You have to, right when the player gets drafted, you have to update all the rosters. You have to update all the boards. And so I did a lot of that kind of stuff behind the scenes. And then, of course, right when the draft ended, all the players started flying in. Guess who went to the airport to get them? That was mainly me. The agents, the players, everybody else. So it was a real, it was intense. That's the best word I could use to really summarize it. Intense process of information gathering and making sure everything was exactly the way it was supposed to be in that building.
And you made a distinct, you distinguished between a pro scout and a college scout. So obviously the college scout is probably going to these college games and figuring out these players that are potential players. So I'm assuming, is that pro scout now you're looking more in the free agency class? Is that kind of what your goal was? Okay.
Yes. And then salary cap research too. There's a lot of that.
And then as a pro scout, do they kind of give you a position group to scout, or is it just in general, any position, you're just looking for best players available?
Well, there's usually like conference scouts. And then our pro scouting director at the time, Scott Pioli, did a lot of the advanced scouting for the upcoming opponent. So he was kind of in charge, obviously, doing that and leading that charge. And then we had JoJo Wooden also as a conference scout at the time. And he was, taking care of some of the advanced stuff. And then I was doing a lot of like the information stuff and entering a lot of stuff into the computer, everything. So teams do it differently in a lot of cases. And then, of course, it's as I, the more time went on as I was with the Jets, then my responsibilities include like my third season, they made me the first special teams advanced scout in NFL history. And so I was in charge of like advanced scouting all the special teams, working with the special teams coach, Mike Sweatman. I wrote up every kickoff return, punt return player in the league. Actually wrote another 350-page book on every single specialist, every single special teams player in the NFL, and ranked them as well. And in my fourth season, I was scouting other leagues, the Canadian Football League at the time and stuff like that. So it just kind of depends on how teams do it. But traditionally it's conference scouts. And then, sometimes there's a lot of like incoming like prospects trying to, get a tryout. You have to respond to all of them with a letter. You have to coordinate all the tryouts and workouts when the guys do come in, to the team to work out. So there's a lot of other behind the scenes responsibilities, and the salary cap is a full-time job by itself, behind the scenes. Creating that board, as Mike Tannenbaum was our capologist at the time, creating that board, putting all the, names up on the board, making sure it was all right, doing the salary cap research, because it's a saying around the Jets building was, Sunil, is we're in the information gathering business. And so, our job was, if there was any kind of information whatsoever out there on a player, Scott Pioli would go ahead and put together like probably about 4 or 5 inch thick stack of papers every morning and bring them in. And he was able, for me to go ahead and enter into the computer parts that he had highlighted. So, if a player had like a DWI, if a player pulled a hamstring, if a player, anything like that went into the database, and Jet Scout was the name of our computer system, because what happened was then the team would use that information in the negotiations process. So if an agent came in there and tried to sell a player to us, then, the powers that be in the building were able to say, well, it looks like here on, 9/12, he pulled his hamstring on 10/18. He did it. It was something where we used that information to our advantage in that process.
Right. And those are going to be like the percentage points here or there before they take maybe this player over that player kind of thing.
Right.
Okay. Awesome. We got some questions coming in. Noah Johnson, coach, says, did Daniel make more money at B of A, or was he making more money as a scout for the Jets?
Oh, Bank of America by far.
That's hilarious.
You got to understand something. Everybody in the building, it was kind of like a military structure to it. Everybody paid their dues in the building. So, once upon a time, Bill Belichick himself used to go get hot dogs for Ted Marchibroda. At their training camp with the Colts, wow. Right? So everybody kind of came up that way. And so absolutely more money at the bank, no question.
Wow. It's pretty interesting because you've mentioned names like Bill Parcells, Bill Belichick. You mentioned Scott Pioli. This is like NFL royalty. So you were part of the Jets organization when the Jets had just the elite of the elite, it seems like, in the building. So that must have been some great experience for you as well.
It was incredible. It really was, Sunil. It was, the first part of my interview, picture this, right? Because I went in there right from the bank, so I was working at Bank of America at the time. So at my Jets interview, I walked into the building, and the first person I met with was Dick Haley, as I mentioned before, the architect of the 1970s Pittsburgh Steelers dynasty. This is a guy that drafted Terry Bradshaw and Mean Joe Green and Franco Harris and these type of guys we see on NFL films. And I walk into the room, and there's this little table sitting there in the back corner of the office. And I walk in, and he's been in the NFL 40 years, kind of salt and pepper hair, a really nice suit on, suit jacket. He walks up and shakes my hand, and he extends his hand. He's got one of those Steelers rocks on his hand when he goes to shake my hand. So, it was just really incredible to be able to sit down with people like that and work with people like that and really learn from people like that. Because when I walked up and down the Jets hallway, as you talked about, it was a who's who of the NFL. And we also had Romeo Cornell on staff. We had Al Groh. We had Eric Mangini. It was just Todd Haley was there, Dan Henning. Every door, Charlie Weiss. Every door was a name that we all know today, those of us that love football. So it was an incredible experience to be able to learn from everybody in that building and be able to be in that environment for sure.
That's amazing. Now, one thing that I do want to ask, and this might be a really naive question, so I apologize.
No.
But, us as fans, I'm speaking more from a fan than obviously analysts like you, but we sit here and we're doing our mock drafts and we're doing the players that we'd like to pick and, you know, all of these types of things. And, you know, us as fan GMs never blow a pick. Like, we're like, we would have never picked that guy, right? We never, zero busts from a fan GM, right? So, but we've seen some, you know, huge blunders. I've seen it from, you know, being a 49er fan. We've seen it, unfortunately, a multitude of times, having high picks and guys that didn't pan out. But with all of that information that you just kind of talked to me about, it seems like it's such an in-depth process, Daniel. How do guys who are just the top, the cream of the cream, like you said, how are they still getting it wrong on certain players when it comes to draft day?
That's a great question, Sunil. I think what it comes down to is there's just too many variables involved. And every team, especially a team like the Jets, I mean, you know, a lot of people in the NFL have plan A, B, C, and D, I've been told. A person like Bill Belichick has plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I mean, just all the way through the alphabet, right? So they plan for everything, and they go over all the variables in their strategy meetings and also through their thought processes. But there's always the human element to it, that there's some things that you just can't take into an account. You know, I mean, I think that's why when you see like, you know, when Coach Belichick, you know, drafted Aaron Hernandez, you know, I think that's a classic example of this. Great tight end talent out of Florida. I mean, Hall of Fame ability, I felt watching him on film as a tight end, but there was some stuff going on behind the scenes. And so there's things that happen. And really the kind of money these guys are making is a variable too, because you know, sometimes these guys come into the league, and I remember I stayed in the rookie dorms my first, you know, right after I got hired in 1998, you know, by the Jets. They put me up in the dorms with the rookies, and the first week, you know, they all rolled in their college beaters. You know, they had like, you know, it's like cars with three wheels. You know, Scott Frost from Nebraska rolled in with an old beater, this old clunker. Wow. You know, all these guys had these old vehicles, and then like they get the rookie signing bonus, and everyone's got an Escalade, a Navigator, spinning wheels. You know, so the money, you know, they say the money changes some players in the NFL too. And you see that a little bit. So I think, you know, there's just too many variables involved to always be able to know, because like to your point, you know, I've researched it too. I mean, 53% of first rounders are bust historically. And so, yeah, it does. It happens to all of us. It happens to the best of us. As a matter of fact, a little humility check for me, you know, when people say, well, you know, where did you have Peyton Manning ranked in 1998? I say, well, it's my fourth ranked quarterback. To your point, like we all make mistakes, right? I had Ryan Leaf number 1. I had Brian Griese number 2. I had Dan Gonzalez number 3 and Peyton Manning number 4. Okay. But at my saving graces, I always come back to, I said, listen, Hall of Fame general manager Bobby Beathard selected Ryan Leaf. I don't want to talk about the other guys. Right. You know, so, but I mean, that's kind of humorous, because I mean, if you're hitting 80% in the NFL, you are a superstar. Right.
I'm definitely going to hold that Peyton Manning thing against you later on in this discussion when we start talking about Trey Lance. But I might bring that up if I'm losing. So anyways.
Hey, I set that up nicely for you, didn't I?
I appreciate it.
No problem.
I do have one more question before we move on. But, you know, there's certain, I guess, organizations or certain GMs that I've seen that have had a little bit more success, right? You look at it like a guy like Ozzie Newsome, who was, you know, the GM for the Ravens, and just seemed to be able to pick the right type of defensive players and the trenches, you know, whether it be offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, safety. He just seemed like he never missed when it came to finding Hall of Fame type talent. You look at the Pittsburgh Steelers and their ability to just draft receivers. It's like if they pick the receiver, you're kicking yourself in the butt if you could have picked them, because you know this guy's about to be amazing because, you know, the Pittsburgh Steelers picked, you know, that guy as a receiver. What do you think separates when it comes to these type of organizations or these type of just position groups that certain organizations just seem to be able to scout the right way, pick the right way? And why is it so hard to duplicate across the league into every, I guess, draft room?
That's a great question too, Sunil. I mean, it's something where you touched on some of the, you know, internally inside the NFL, there's flagship organizations for scouting. You touched on 2 of them. You touched on the Baltimore Ravens, the Pittsburgh Steelers. You have the Green Bay Packers is another one. The Vikings were thought to be one for years. And now, of course, Seattle, you have John Schneider up there as a general manager who was with the Packers for years. You have some of these organizations that are just rooted in scouting and grinding. And I think if I was on a game show, I think it's in those organizations, everyone comes up the hard way from what I've seen. Everyone starts as a grunt, if you will. Everyone starts at the bottom and everybody grinds through the process. And all those organizations, a lot of times, especially, I mean, look at Pittsburgh. I mean, it's the same guys every single year. It's the same type of linebackers, the same type of running backs, the same type of players. It's just a way of doing it. And I think they look for people that are open to taking their direction. And those are the people they bring in the scout. And those are the people that get promoted through the ranks. Because if you notice, a lot of times, a lot of those guys get promoted, coming up through the ranks. They earn their stripes, so to speak. Ozzie Newsome, obviously a little bit different. He was a Hall of Fame, caliber tight end for Cleveland. And he's a great, personnel man as well. Probably go in the Hall of Fame as a personnel guy too at some point. And so I think, whereas a lot of other teams, and the thing too is, I've had this conversation with scouting directors in the NFL. We talk about systems. And, everyone gets caught up, the West Coast offense, for example, that was unique. That was Bill Walsh's, since we're in a 49ers, nation here, right? The West Coast was Bill Walsh's. Some people would argue Jerry Burns would have had a part and role to play in it, but that was really Bill Walsh's brainchild. And so he was able to do that. And it was he was able to, because he knew what it was, he believed in it, he was able to sell it with conviction. The players believed that they did it. Other people, in that organization, if you notice, I mean, the percentage of Bill Walsh, the success that he had versus all his disciples in different places, it's not even close, right? And so it's I think a lot of these different organizations try to take people from, the teams you mentioned, the Pittsburghs, the Baltimores, these different flagship organizations of scouting, and they try to duplicate this in other places, but it's not their system. It's not true to them. And so they may know parts of that system. They may try to do parts of that system, but it's not authentic. It's not them. So I think they have a lot harder time, if that makes sense, duplicating in other places, because any system in the NFL will win, I believe, as long as it's your system.
Right. Kind of like, we see that what Bill Belichick was able to do with New England. And, these coaches try to go out off their own, try to duplicate the same system, and they just kind of fall flat on their face because it has to be from the top to the bottom. I'm assuming ownership, the GMs, the coaching staff, the scouting departments, the players all have to be on the same page. It can't just be, one or two people thinking the same way, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. Definitely some great stuff already. But one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on is because I know, one, you scouted for the Jets, but two, you're writing for them. And obviously the 49ers and the Jets right now have a lot of, overlap, because Robert Saleh is now the coach over there, and he comes pretty much off of the Shanahan tree. And they, we just saw right now free agency. They just took, the left guard from the 49ers and gave him a big deal over there for the Jets. And I assume they're going to be like a lot of interchangeable pieces between those two teams. But, the 49ers don't have a first-round draft pick, so I didn't want to necessarily find out, who you think are some of the first-round grades maybe the Jets are looking for. But let's go second and third round. The 49ers do have a second-round pick. I think the Jets have, a few picks in the second and third rounds. So what are some players that you're looking at that maybe the Jets and the 49ers might be targeting there in the second round? What kind of players have you noticed that they're looking for, and what kind of holes can be filled with the talent that's going to be there in those two rounds?
Well, I've looked specifically, I think, especially for the 49ers at cornerback. And I think that, one of the players that stands out to me who I think will slip into the second round is Kobe Bryant. Is a guy that played for not the basketball player that we all love,
right.
But his namesake. Actually played corner across from Ahmad Sauce Gardner there at the University of Cincinnati, and somebody that has a lot of pizzazz at corner. He's somebody that's obviously, I mean, you have to be if you're named after a legend, right?
Right.
And he's somebody that, he has that attitude and swag for the position of corner. He's somebody that feels very comfortable. You can tell being on an island with a receiver, and he's got that confidence to him. This is a guy that had 10 passes intercepted during his college career, 35 passes defensed. He's somebody that, is a ball hawk of sorts, but he doesn't have the hips that you want a corner to have necessarily that would go in the first round. He doesn't have those hips. He's got very good straight line speed. So if you can, run routes, if you're matching him against, running routes that have, quick break points to the inside, off the passing route, you might get him, but a straight line route, he's going to get you. Mm-hmm. And so he's a very intriguing player to me. Somebody again that when you see those kind of numbers, Sunil, when you see those kind of numbers, 10 passes, intercepted, 35 passes defensed, it just screams somebody that has really good ball instincts. Mm-hmm. And that's so important in today's NFL. So I would be very intrigued by somebody like that in the second round. Tariq Woolen is another person, UTSA. A very aggressive, kind of an ideal nickel, if you will, mm-hmm. to start out with. Straight line, good straight line speed. Somebody who can blitz very well. Someone that has, I feel, developmental upside, because at this point of his career, he tends to play the receiver on the deep ball more than he's playing the ball. And if somebody was a really good defensive backs coach and could teach him better techniques, like an Aaron Glenn, for example, that kind of turned some things around for some of those corners in Detroit, and learn how to develop to play the ball a little bit more than playing the receiver, if that makes sense. You may have something in Woolen. I like him. And also Martin Emerson is another guy, maybe bottom of second, maybe more of a third round corner. He's a guy from Mississippi State, 15 passes defense, 1 interception. Really a squatty, physical corner. He loves to jam. He loves to play physical football. He loves to blow people up. Mm-hmm. So he's got that to him. He brings that aggressive factor to a defense. Average hips, playing speed, no second gear, but this guy brings it. And so, there's a couple guys in there that you could start out, with Woolen and Emerson as a nickel, more or less, in the defense, and develop them from there. But the Kobe Bryant guy is more of a, higher second round, mid second round guy. I feel that, the 49ers should take a look at.
Yeah. And I think the Jets and the 49ers are going to be pretty similar in the type of, especially like corner wise. They're looking for guys that are aggressive with tackling and that, play the run very well as guys that could play both press and have to be able to understand the zone reads as well. So you feel like these type of players all kind of fit that mold?
I do.
Okay, awesome. I know you've done, the way we connected was through your actual cornerbacks. You were listing your top 10, and that's what I messaged you and we got to talk. Have you gone on to have you looked at any kind of like defensive ends quite yet? Have you broken those down yet? Because I think that's another position that some fans are thinking the 49ers might go after in the second round.
Yes, I have actually. I've looked at a handful of them, probably about 9 edge rushers at this point. It's as you know, it's a full-time endeavor. There's too many players and not enough time. That's why NFL teams have 12 to 15 college scouts on staff. Versus like when I'm trying to do it, it's all just me trying to cover the whole country.
Well, one thing I thought you said, I saw you speak about Nick Bonito. And that's somebody that has been kind of tied to the 49ers. And your praise for him was very, very high. I think you mentioned you thought he could be the Micah Parsons, but he even has a higher motor than Micah Parsons is what I think I read you right. Do you think he's somebody that can fall to like the 62 range where the 49ers are? Because that's kind of where people were thinking, they were thinking maybe Bonito could be there or Jalen Petrie. But now these guys are starting to climb up the draft board. Are either of those guys you think going to be able to even be around for 62?
I don't. I think those guys, I have them going in the first round.
Wow. Okay, cool. So who are some defensive line, the 49ers just lost DJ Jones to the Broncos. Who are some guys that might be able to go there on the edge or in the, in the trenches on the defensive line that the 49ers might be able to get in that 60th spot?
Yeah, I would say, there's probably a couple of them that, I would look at. I think that at that range, I think Boy Mafi from the University of Minnesota, I think is a very interesting player. He's got a pretty good speed coming off the edge. He's got, violent hands. And also he loves to press the back door of the pocket. I think he's someone that would be very interesting. Should be right around that spot. I think that, I think he would be right there. That'd be the main one I would think of really at that spot. Because I think most of those guys, because here's the thing that's going to happen, Sunil. In today's NFL, I write about this quite a bit for SI, for the Jets and Lions. In today's NFL, it's developing more and more into a pass happy league,
right?
Where teams, all 32 teams are passing between about 51% and 66% of the time. On teamrankings.com is some site I go to quite a bit that I love. And so I think that a lot of those edge rushers are going to probably be gone by that point. And a lot of the top corners will be gone at that point too, because of that factor. People try to, stop, get to the quarterback and stop the pass.
Makes a lot of sense, right? Whatever the offense is doing, you got to gear the defense to be able to combat that. Otherwise, you're going to be, it's going to be a long day on Sunday.
Try. If you can't get one of those guys, you got to go offensive skill position, and just try to keep up.
Right. Absolutely. Go the Cincinnati route, right? Get as much weapons as possible to your young quarterback.
That's right.
So we got to see, obviously, tampering period started. Some big moves already have been made. So I wanted to get your take. Let's start with the positives. Daniel, who do you think had the biggest win so far in free agents? What are some of these moves that you've liked so far that you've seen?
Well, I just had a brief moment to scroll through it today and look at the tracker. But I really like what the Jacksonville Jaguars have done, bringing in that guard, from Washington, Brandon Scherff. I like that move. And also, I love Christian Kirk, the slot receiver from the Arizona Cardinals. I think that's a really good move.
How do you feel about that contract, though?
Well, yeah, I don't know.
See, like the move, Christian is a good receiver for sure. But at $21 million a year, I was like, man, what is Debo about to make in a couple years?
Yeah, and I love Debo, by the way, 49ers Nation. I love him, so I want to make sure I get some. I want to let everybody know who I love on the team. Because we're going to get to somebody else here pretty soon, like you said. But it's the market. These agents are able to work these deals. And I mean, I was frankly shocked to see Michael Gallup get the deal that he got. Coming off the torn ACL. I tweeted about that today. His average per catch has been going down steadily for the last 3 years, and he's only caught 55% of the passes, the target in his NFL career so far. And so I was really surprised by that. So seeing the deal that Kirk got doesn't shock me, especially when he's going to a team like Jacksonville. It's you got to sweeten the pot a little bit to get a guy in there like a Christian Kirk, because he is a real talent that can really stretch the field from that slot position.
Mm-hmm. Was there anything? I know the Jets, signed Laken Tomlinson. How'd you feel about that move?
I would have gone a different direction, probably. I think you have to, like we're talking about, in my opinion, I mean, this is me, but you have to get weapons for Zach Wilson, and you have to build that defense. I mean, they had one of the worst pass rushes in the NFL last year. You have to be able to get to the quarterback more. And that's something that, that really Robert Saleh, his defense when he was with, the 49ers, is getting Bosa really changed things for him when he skyrocketed up to the 8th ranked defense, when he had that great pass rush that 1 year. That really changed things for him. So I think his entire system is based on getting to the quarterback and being able to get to the quarterback. And yeah, it's just, getting a guard. I mean, I don't know about that one. I think, I really wanted to see the Jets trade for DK Metcalf. I put an article today about that. I wanted to see them get somebody that can really change things and a real number one wide receiver. They also have a big needs at tight end as well.
Right. Well, it's only day one, so there's still a lot of talent still on the board and a lot of moves still to be made. But let's go some of the negative. What were some of the moves that you looked at and you were like, man, this isn't going to work out well?
Well, yeah, it's I think Detroit, the team that's near and dear to my heart, writing for the Detroit Lions.
Uh-huh.
I looked at that and it looked like a shopping list. Someone went to the dollar store, the Dollar Tree. It's I thought the Lions could have done a lot more to help themselves and bring all the guys back that helped them go 3-13-1 last year, and that's what they did. And Tim Boyle, I mean, as a quarterback, I mean, that's awful. So I wasn't too thrilled by what the Lions did. And Tracy Walker, I've gone on record several times with not being happy with his level of play at all at safety. I think safety's been the Achilles heel of the entire defense over the last 2 years since I've ran for them. And so I wasn't too thrilled by what the Lions did. It's pretty early in the process for everybody else. So nothing else really stood out as something, some of the trades, I mean, that was the Carson Wentz deal in Washington was a kind of a eyebrow raiser for me.
Right? Do you think in what way do you think that you are you thinking that he could fit in well there, or you think that he's gonna not play as well like he did his last
I'm not a big fan of it. I mean, I really thought that they would pursue Deshaun Watson. I thought they'd be one of the major players in that whole mix, but they didn't. And I think the Mitch Trubisky, the Pittsburgh is a very strange fit as well. I don't see that at all, and so I'm not too sure what they were thinking there either.
Well, interesting. How did you feel about the Denver move to get Russell Wilson?
I wasn't a big fan of it, to be
Really?
honest. I thought the first thing I thought of, Sunil, when I saw that was, I'm dating myself, but the first thought I had that went through my mind was Herschel Walker trade 2.0.
Wow.
I felt like they gave up a lot, and I really haven't seen. When I watched a couple Seahawks games today. And actually yesterday, see, the days all blend together when you're watching film. And I was watching DK Metcalf, and I watched Russell Wilson. And even in those 2 games I watched him in, Sunil, it seemed like he was just holding the ball too long, and he was taking some sacks unnecessarily. I mean, he's been sacked a lot. I mean, right. I think in his career, this is off memory. I think he's been sacked like 427 times over his career, like 42 times on the average over 10 years he's been sacked. So I just, I don't know. I was very surprised by it. I really thought that George Patton, coming over from the Minnesota Vikings, was going to try to do whatever he could to get Kirk Cousins into Denver, but that obviously didn't materialize. I don't know. I don't know. They gave up a lot for him.
Right.
I don't know. That's like that Christian Kirk contract.
Right.
Wonder, within itself, maybe, but the deal that they gave up a lot. I mean, that they got to hit a grand slam on that deal for it to make sense.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously he's going to be an upgrade over Drew Lock, but that division is tough. What the Chargers are doing is ridiculous. It looks like they got
another winner in free agency.
Mac,
I thought
that was for me definitely to get Mac and J.C. Jackson.
J.C. Jackson is awesome. Yeah, that's. What a steal that is. That's and that's kind of funny too, because I mentioned JoJo Wooden, he's out there with the Chargers, right, as the director of player personnel. Of course, he was with me and also with Bill Belichick. We were all together at the Jets. So for them to get JC out there was a huge win for the Chargers. But I mean, that, and of course, Khalil Mack too. I mean, they've really helped themselves. That whole division is extremely tough. And so it's going to be tough to climb into, into the playoffs for Denver.
Right. Absolutely. Well, look, Daniel, there's been some people that have talked to me about you in the 49er fan base. There's an article you wrote.
I hear from the 49ers fans every day. Those are some of the best fans in the world. I love those guys. You know what I love? I love the most about 49ers fans is the passion. The passion that comes through in all the comments.
Yeah. So here's one. Linda Tinjum, thank you for joining into the show. Really, Daniel Kelly, the guy who said the probability of Trey Lance being a bust was 100%. The guy who said after the Senior Bowl it was more realistic that Christian Watson runs a 4.62 than a 4.38. Yes, this is that Daniel Kelly, by the way, Linda.
That's me.
So I just saw you recently put up that you think it would be the worst decision ever if the 49ers got rid of Jimmy Garoppolo. I read your article when it came out with Trey Lance during the draft that any GM that drafts Trey Lance should be fired immediately.
Even considers drafting.
Yeah, even considers. Even worse than just actually doing it. So obviously you have some very strong feelings when it comes to the quarterback position with the 49ers. And let's just put it in perspective. You seem like it's not just Trey Lance. You've been critical of a lot of, quarterbacks as well. So there's obviously maybe a certain fit that you see, but let's talk about it. Let's go first. Why do you feel like it would be a bad decision for the 49ers to get rid of Jimmy? Because there's obviously a contention with the 49er fans that believe Jimmy is, saved because he helped change the trajectory of the 49ers. But there is a big contention, me included, that feel like he's a limited quarterback. There's, you're kind of scaling down the playbook with him. He doesn't tend to make the deep throws that can open up the offense for a Kyle Shanahan run offense. And then there's the injury history as well. So what is it about Jimmy G that you look to that you feel like, hey, this is a guy that the 49ers should continue to keep on their roster and be their starter?
The intangibles.
Okay.
And this is something that I think attracted Bill Belichick to him in the first place when he was up in New England. The intangibles that Jimmy G have, when I watch Jimmy G play for the San Francisco 49ers, he has this calm, cool, collected, just this ability to draw the team together and bring the team together. I mean, and bottom line, this is a guy that's almost led the 49ers almost to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years. So to me, I think he's 33-14 as a starter. He's somebody with a very, impressive football resume when it comes to, being drafted by Bill Belichick. And he's somebody that he's just got this charisma to him that it's unseen, but it's an ability to draw the team together and the ability to do what needs to be done with Kyle Shanahan's system. And I just think that he's a natural born leader. And he's somebody that, has been very impressive to me.
Then I agree. I think one thing that, gets overlooked, he's been in a very tough quarterback situation with the 49ers. Kyle Shanahan has flirted with every single quarterback every offseason that Jimmy Garoppolo has been there. And, Jimmy's handled it with a lot of class, never made it an issue. A lot of class. Good point. Never was a me guy and stuff like that. So I think the 49ers definitely lucked out with a guy like Jimmy who, was able to bring maturity to the position and a stability as far as a personality that the team really needed when it was going through, so many struggles and overturn of a culture. However, me watching every single 49ers game, there's a lot of positive that Jimmy did bring. But there was a lot of games that we were winning in spite of Jimmy Garoppolo. The defense, played lights out so many games to keep it close enough for Jimmy to finally get on track or the offense to finally get on track. So I think there's, some of us fans that look at it and it's just like, sometimes Jimmy made these wins a lot more difficult than they needed to be. It was a close, eked out victory instead of a blowout if Jimmy wasn't throwing interceptions in the red zone and stuff like that. So I understand your point, but I also see a lot of pushback that I've seen personally about Jimmy. But I do have a lot of excitement surrounding Trey Lance. And you're kind of killing my vibe and killing my bubble of just all of this that I love about Trey Lance. But let's get into it. Clearly, you believe Trey Lance isn't going to be, one of these top QBs out of this last year's draft or just in general. What is it that you see out of Trey Lance? Because a lot of those same intangibles that you talk about with Jimmy are the things that people spoke about as far as him with his, 1 year at NDSU and the type of leadership that he brings to the position as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let me go back, because my scouting and evaluating of Trey Lance, started before he was with the 49ers. So this is nothing personal with the 49ers nation. Okay.
Right. We're still going to take it that way though.
No, don't. And I'm still going to get the Linda's point too.
Go ahead.
But when I first watched him, I was invited onto a podcast, just, similar to this one. And they gave me 3 guys to look at. And one of the guys was Trey Lance up in North Dakota. I didn't know Trey Lance from the next guy. Okay. When I turned on the film, when I watched him at North Dakota, he struck me as the first thought that went through my mind. And I can't control these thoughts that go through my mind. It just happens. I mean, 40 years of it, just an encyclopedic, experience of watching the game. The first thought that went through my mind was, this guy's a poor man's Donovan McNabb. First thought I had. And to me, it was just, I looked at him, I studied him, because the show I was going to go on was pretty high on him. I could get that impression from them. So I really did the work on him. And it was just somebody that didn't impress me. Didn't impress me as a runner. Didn't impress me throwing the football. It was somebody that I thought, okay, maybe a 5th, 6th round. I mean, this was my first impression. Maybe a 5th, 6th round guy that you bring in. Maybe he's on the practice squad. Maybe he's a guy that runs your scout team. Something like that. And so that's what was my first impression. Well, obviously, just like this year with Kenny Pickett, the wheels started spinning really fast in the Trey Lance thing. And all of a sudden, now he's worked himself into a first round discussion. Now he's worked himself into a top 10 discussion. Now all of a sudden, the 49ers are trading 3 number 1 draft picks for the guy to move up to get him, at number 3. And so I was like, wow, really? 3 number 1 draft picks. But I mean, I released the reports before the draft. That's what I always do to make sure I get on the record before it happens.
Right.
And, and I was just shocked. I was really shocked. I thought, if you're going to trade, I mean, first of all, if you're walking out of the top 10, you better have a person, a quarterback that's a gamer, that's a baller. Okay. And this is not a developmental project. Save that stuff for the 3rd, 4th round. If you want to bring a guy in, develop him, and, work with him a couple of years and watch him film and that kind of, I mean, that's what the 3rd or 4th, developmental rounds are for. You're talking about a first round pick. You're talking about a top 10 pick. Then to compound things, you're spending 3 number 1 picks on a quarterback like this. This is somebody, in my mind, is got to walk in from day one as the big man on campus and just take the reins and run with it. This is a pro-ready, polished, ready-to-go quarterback for 3 number 1s. I mean, if I hear, obviously, Deshaun's gone through Watson's gone through his share of the legal issues. But when I hear 3 number 1 draft picks, I'm thinking Deshaun Watson. That's what I'm thinking when I hear 3 number 1s for a guy, or like what, we see with the trade for Russell Wilson, or the possible trades we see in these other places, or what Kyler Murray may get, or, that's what I'm thinking. I'm not thinking about a guy that, comes into the team is running like this option trade package thing that, like he's not the guy. I mean, the one thing that Jacksonville and the Jets did both was that they cleared out the guys that they had and they made those rookies their guy. Well, the 49ers did not, in my mind, have enough confidence in Trey Lance to deal Jimmy G right off the bat. And so I asked myself, well, why?
Well, I think, to push back a little bit, obviously Trey is a very young quarterback, right? He's the youngest quarterback ever drafted. And he only had that 1 year of football, really. We're really judging him off of 1 year of football, college football. And as far as that 1 year in the system, he won pretty much every award that you could win in that division, as far as, quarterback, leader, so on and so forth. Went undefeated, didn't throw an interception. Clearly didn't throw the ball a lot. He averaged 16 passes per game, but, they ended up winning a championship. And I think where the 49ers looked at him is he was somebody who was familiar with the system that the 49ers would run. He is somebody who could play under center. He's somebody who's pretty good, if not elite, at play action. And he's somebody who, Kyle Shanahan talks about it all the time. I want somebody who could run like Lamar and throw like Drew Brees, right? And I think that the ability to be a dual threat, yet somebody who still likes to throw before he likes to run, is what Kyle Shanahan saw, and just what he thinks and envisions what this offense could be with the guy who has the mobility that he has, as well as just the ability to make plays. And, us as 49er fans, we're seeing footage out of practice that are just unbelievable throws that we haven't seen a quarterback be able to make in quite some time here with the 49ers. In the spot duty that we've seen him play, we've seen him progress week after week after week. And I think for the 49ers as well, this draft class, quarterback-wise, a lot of people are saying that if Trey Lance came out this year, he would be the number 1 quarterback number 1 pick in the draft. So I think the 49ers kind of had a position where they were like, we have Jimmy still for a year. We can take this guy who we know may not be elite immediately, but we feel like, in 2-3 years can really be the guy that we want him to be. So it's kind of like a unique situation for the 49ers to get somebody like this. But I do understand your point. Usually when you're doing 3 first-round picks, you want a guy that's going to come in and be your starter from week 1. I think the 49ers just were in a unique opportunity where they had a Super Bowl ready roster and a quarterback that could possibly take them to the Super Bowl, but definitely knew they needed an upgrade because, Jimmy wasn't going to be the answer long-term just because of his injury woes.
Yeah. And I think too, I was a huge Mac Jones fan. With Alabama. And I thought that my thought was the 49ers could just sit where they were at and take Mac Jones. And Mac Jones obviously, did very well for New England this year. And I just don't know. To me, it's the thing about Trey Lance, and I understand why everybody likes him, but to me, he lacks confidence. That's the big thing to me. And I watched him, I charted all 100 plays that he was in the preseason, and I wrote about in Draft Diamonds. I charted each and every play because I knew people would grill me about this guy eventually, right? Mm-hmm. And here I am.
Right.
So, but he seems to lose confidence as the downs progress. And third down was a huge liability for Trey Lance in the preseason. And to me, he lacks confidence as a quarterback. So, I don't know, I would have been a lot more comfortable with the 49ers. Again, this was all pre-draft, so it wasn't anything against the 49ers organization. I think they've been a lot better off staying where they're at and getting Mac Jones.
Now, clearly, obviously, pre-draft, draft, we're going off of college tape, but now we have some NFL tape on Trey Lance. He started 2 games. 1 game was pretty much an outlier. I don't know what Kyle Shanahan was doing with the play calling and that. They just ran him like it was just all draws, it felt like. Right. But the second game against Houston, especially that second half, we really got to see him open up and throw the ball pretty well. He put up some really good numbers both through the air and, on the ground as well. And we kind of saw what we believe Trey Lance could be. And, that game, a lot of people look at it, it's against Houston. But that was a must-win game for the 49ers to be able to make the playoff push that they ended up making. And that same Houston defense beat or helped, the team beat Justin Herbert and the Chargers the week before. And they were on a 3-game winning streak or 2-game winning streak at that time. So it wasn't like it was just some, throwaway defense. They had been playing pretty well. And Trey Lance did really, really well against them. So now that you've seen some tape on him and just his evolution, because definitely from his start against Arizona to his start against Houston, completely different player in my book as far as just the evolution that we saw. And Shanahan as well, being more comfortable with the play calling for a guy like him. Are you still adamant that this guy can't be the guy, or are you seeing the type of progression?
Yeah, I'm still the same. No, I'm not backing off this. This is part of my GM resume. This is part of the thing that's going to launch me into a GM's chair. Yeah, no. And in all fairness, I did not see the Houston game, but I did see the one pass he made that everybody talks about with the touchdown pass that the receiver had the weight on for a little bit. So yeah, I'm not sold on that one game changing things for me. I think he threw a handful of picks in the preseason. It could have been more. They bounced off the defensive back's hands and such. And yeah, I don't, it's seeing somebody that, Trey Lance cannot run like Lamar Jackson. He cannot throw the ball like Drew Brees. Not to your point, Sunil, but to Kyle Shanahan's point, I would say that to him. And I'm not a big fan of Trey Lance. And I think, and I'll say this to kind of encapsulate things is the longer the 49ers hang on to Jimmy G, the more uncomfortable Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch really are, because actions speak louder than words with Trey Lance. So if this goes on and they keep him as this progresses and Jimmy G is still in the roster when the season begins, they can come out and say whatever they want to say, but the reality is, why are they not going with him? That would be my point. If they hang on to him, That would be my point. It'd be like, why haven't they traded Jimmy G at this point? Why is he still there? Why didn't they trade him last year if they were so confident? They saw all this stuff in practice that you're alluding to. You saw the practices, I didn't. Mm-hmm. But why aren't they trading Jimmy G? I mean, actions speak louder than words. I believe they know he's not ready for this.
Tough to say. There are some guys on here that agree with you, though, Daniel. Right, Ken, this guy's really? Right. We need Jimmy back.
I want to be pen pals with these guys.
You know,
was it like two guys in the country?
No, it's actually, there's a lot of people that agree with you, even in, you know, the faithful fan base. Joey is some guy like me. I'm glad we have a dual threat. Trey has a whole offseason to prep. Glad he's not Zach Wilson.
Oh, I'm not sold on Zach Wilson either. Trust me. I said Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance are all going to be busts. So I'm not a big Zach Wilson fan. So, yeah, no, it's yeah.
Davis Holman, a scout for the Jets. Who are you scouting? Where is their talent? So, to save some bail for Daniel, he was a scout a while back. He's no longer a scout for the Jets. And you know, rewind the episode. You can learn more about his past. We don't have to go back into it. Let's see. Itchy 95. If they drafted Wilson, they would never get rid of Jimmy GQ. So kind of saying if the 49ers drafted Wilson, they would be in the same situation, I guess.
Again, I'm not a Zach Wilson fan, so yeah, I agree with that. I mean, Mac Jones would have been the guy, in my opinion.
Gotcha. Well, I'm gonna end on this, Daniel. You also thought that Peyton Manning was the first.
See, I gave that to you. I gave that to you. So you would have never known that if I didn't give that to you. So that shows how much I love being on your show. That shows how much I love being on your show.
Yeah, I didn't do my research to find that, but I smoozed you enough to drop your guard, to give me the ammo that I needed to end the show on a high note. Daniel, you did an amazing job, man. Definitely one of my favorite interviews that I've been able to do. Thank you so much for taking the time. I do want to give you a few minutes to plug whatever, you know, you got going on. Where can these guys follow you? What do you have going on that these guys could support you? And hopefully we can have you on the show again, man.
Absolutely. I sure appreciate the opportunity to be on, Sunil. It's a lot of fun. And, you know, it's like I always say, it's not about being right. It's about getting the guys right. So I always appreciate and love a healthy debate about players. You know, it's good that we all grow from something like that. I feel. Anyway, so at Daniel Kelly Book is my Twitter account. And it lights up like the 4th of July every day.
Yeah, you definitely have some spicy takes. Definitely follow him if you guys want to have a guy who's definitely out on a limb on certain things, but has facts to back it up as well, which I like.
No, absolutely. And also my book, Whatever It Takes, The True Story of a Fan Making the NFL, is available anywhere books are sold online. You can follow me and see some of my work at SI Detroit Lions. I've been writing for a couple of years, and also SI New York Jets. If you type in my name, Daniel Kelly, New York Jets Scout, you'll see pages and pages and pages of all sorts of stuff come up. And then my Facebook, Whatever It Takes, NFL Talks.
Absolutely. And guys, I have put the link to his book in the description of this video. So, you know, obviously a great story. Maybe you don't like his takes. Maybe you don't agree with you know, how he assesses some of your favorite players. But it is a story of somebody who, you know, had a passion, had a dream, and did whatever it took to actually get there. So you have to respect that. Daniel, once again, thank you so much for joining the show. It's been an honor. I appreciate everybody in the comment section. I know it's getting a little bit spicier as we're ending the show with all the Trey Lance takes. But definitely thank you guys for joining in the show. Please make sure to like, subscribe. It really helps out the algorithm and helps us grow the channel as well. Please go to Daniel's Twitter, go follow him. And, you know, he responds. So go out there, take your spicy takes, you know, respond to his Twitter and he'll respond back. And hopefully you guys can have some fun going back and forth on Twitter. But like we always say, stay healthy, stay hydrated, and have a beautiful night. We'll talk again very, very soon. Take care.